Welcome to the podcast. Today my guest is Aaron West. Okay, Westy.
Yes, Scott.
What got you into music initially?
My old man had a great record collection.
Yeah. So how long, what age were you into the record collection?
I started playing guitar, I was 10.
Oh, wow.
But so probably a little bit before that. So a lot of classic rock, Cream, Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple.
So this would have been in what, 80s?
I was born in 83.
So
in the
90s.
Early 90s.
So,
yeah.
so you're going through your dad's collection, and he's got Cream and Zeppelin and stuff
Eagles
like that.
Eagles and Creedence and just awesome music.
So your dad was obviously into 70s rock, pop.
Yeah, and he'd started playing guitar, so he was goofing around with guitars. And right at the period where I started playing, at like 10 years of age, he just he'd heard about, through Zeppelin and stuff, that they were kind of copying these blues guys. So he started going down this path of buying Robert Johnson and B.B. King, Little Walter, Buddy Guy, all these albums. Yeah,
so that would have been quite a
right when I started.
That's a rich array of material.
I was so lucky.
Yeah,
and even at, it blows my mind. Even at that age, even at like 10, I remember hearing Robert Johnson and those guys and going, "That's really deep. That's coming from somewhere intense, like really."
Wow.
Even at that age, I could tell it was really special.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Off records. Vinyl?
It was vinyl, yeah.
Wow.
Vinyl and cassette tapes. He had a bunch of
–
cassette tapes and, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's in the 90s. And you start playing at 10. Did you get lessons?
Not initially, no. Dad had just shown me how to play the riff for Smoke on the Water and stuff like that. And chords, and that's how I got into it. And, I didn't really take lessons until later. I grew up on a farm. So when I first started playing – there was no internet. You literally had Dad's records and, he could show you some stuff. But I had no information, no books or anything like that. And
so as far as like what was happening at school for you at that time?
Well, there was no music program. There was like 10 kids at my school. One of them was my sister. So so there was no music program or anything.
Wow.
No. So, it's a bit of a long story, but I wound up, Mum and Dad split, and Mum took us to Tamworth, and Dad went to the Gold Coast.
Oh.
And eventually, so I lived in Tamworth for a couple of years and was kind of exposed to the country then.
How was that?
I didn't like Tamworth. It was cold in the winter and hot in the summer, hot as shit.
It's extremes, isn't it?
And and when we come up for holidays to the Gold Coast, it was awesome. You go surfing and it was freaking cool. And then eventually Mum said, I reckon you kids should be closer to Dad. So we moved up and I went to Robina High.
Okay.
And at some point then, I remember it was Robin Ford and Larry Carlton were the two guys that... Actually, the guy that got me right into guitar was Stevie Ray Vaughan. Oh. My old man brought home VHS tape of Live at El Macombo.
Wow.
And it fucking blew my mind, man.
Yeah, man.
It still blows my mind. You watch that stuff, it is unbelievable.
Yeah, he was something special.
Unbelievable. And so for years, I was a pretty good little Stevie Ray Vaughan knockoff, with the behind the head and the behind the back and all that sort of shit. But, I could play all the pentatonic stuff.
Playing Scuttlebutton.
Yeah, that's right. And then at some point, I remember hearing Robin Ford and Larry Carlton and kind of going, I understand 80% of what they're doing. And then when they start playing these outside jazz shit, I got fucking no idea what they're doing. At some point, I remember asking a teacher at Robina High, like, some question about, about jazz, and he said, you should go and get lessons off. And he sent me to Gordon Matheson.
Oh, Gordo.
Yeah, up above
the old Gold Coast legend
music.
He is.
Man, he changed. I owe that guy a lot, and I don't say it enough, but, I went there with a specific goal. Show me Robin Ford, show me Larry Carlton. I thought in a couple of lessons I'll have it down and I'll fucking move on, And I went there, and like the first thing he puts up is like, he goes, oh yeah, cool, man. And then he just puts up these charts. He's like, check out these Brazilian bossa nova rhythms. And I'm like, I don't fucking want to learn Brazilian bossa nova rhythms.
Was he heavy on learning how to read? Because he's a big reader.
Yeah, a little bit, but he just opened my mind. Like I would have been, I'm guessing 15, something like that. 15, 16. I think I was already doing gigs. I was already out doing gigs, but yeah, it was like classical stuff, straight ahead jazz stuff like Wes and Joe Pass, and even like metal stuff. We'd go in there and stuff like Dream Theater solos, and you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but I remember getting frustrated sometimes and going, I want to be fucking doing Bob and Ford and stuff, but he just opened my mind, and all of a sudden it was like there's all this other shit to the instrument, and I was getting exposed to it. And yeah, at some point I decided I wanted to do it as a career.
G'day everyone, just a short interruption. Please hit the subscribe button. It's a massive help to me. I'm trying to grow the channel. Thanks. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
Which I'm lucky, man, because I mean, I feel sorry for people that don't.
Find that
Majority
thing.
of people that go through school, they finish and they don't know what the fuck they're going to do.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. No, I can relate to that. It was one of those things.
I
I found guitar and it was just like everything else, nothing else existed.
Yeah, we're
like,
the
I just
lucky
wanna do
ones,
that.
bro. We're the lucky ones because we have that North Star. We know what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
We have a direction, and we just work towards it.
Yeah. So Gordo's teaching you stuff.
Yeah.
How long did you spend with Gordo? I mean, like, there's so much.
A couple of years.
Is it one of those things? Like, I know what it's like with me. It's like the more you learn,
Yeah.
the more you realise
Yeah.
there's fucking so much more to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did about 2 years with Gordon, I would imagine, and in the second part of it, I had the goal. I was going to audition for the Conservatorium in Brisbane, and so we worked towards that. He said you have to. There's a theory aspect to it because I couldn't read. I didn't have any theory knowledge. There's a test when you do the con. There's a test that's like a classical theory. It's all
right.
you know. This progression is a blah blah blah, and there's
Is there an ear component to that?
I can't remember if it was
recognising
intervals. I can't remember, mate. But I remember it was a paper thing. You had to write down the answers on paper. Yeah, so we worked towards that and a bunch of stuff. And he said, look, it'll benefit you to have grades if you go and do like I can't remember what they're called now.
Oh, so the actual proper training grades.
Yeah,
like
so
piano has grades.
Yeah, so he sent me off and said, look, man, just when you put your resume on the table, you know, it just doesn't say, you know, gigs or whatever. It'll, you know, you'll have, I've did this grade and I've done blah, blah, blah and this theory thing. And so I just started working towards, that was my goal, and I just started ticking stuff off to do it, and eventually they took, there was, I think 90-something people auditioned, and they only took 2 places.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I did jazz guitar. I only lasted a year and I left. But it was great. And the guitar teacher at the con was fantastic, man. But he was so busy at the time, and I was busy too, gigging, that
Make
out
it
of
hard?
like the
Make it
30 or
hard?
40 lessons I was supposed to have, I probably only had 10 maybe, 10 or 15 one-on-one lessons with Jamie.
Well, who were you gigging with at the time?
When I was in high school, there was a school teacher called Paul Bullpit, who was a science teacher there.
Bullpit, really?
Yeah, like Ted Bullpit. and so he sang and played guitar, and he heard me play guitar there at school and said, he'd just come back from London or something, I think. He was a great guy, man, surfy guy.
Yeah.
And he had all these connections that, like, he was a member at Currumbin Viking Surf Club, and they were talking to him about doing gigs, and so we started there as a duo. The band grew, eventually like quartet, and we did a whole bunch of stuff, man, pubs. And so I was like, probably 15 or 16 when I first started doing that stuff. And then by the time I was at the con, I was doing just all sorts of stuff. And I came on board early with Veneta Fields.
Okay.
I was either 17 or 18 when I first started with Veneta. Probably 18, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so
doing gigs with her?
Yeah, it was a great band too. I was really lucky. Mike Wade kind of.
So Mike Wade playing keys?
He was MD, and it was good players, man.
What sort of material were you playing?
Mostly covers stuff, but I mean, like, you know, old school soul. She was doing Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing, Marvin Gaye, and Let the Good Times Roll, Ray Charles, that sort of stuff. And yeah, it was good. So it was good to.
Had you come across that music before?
Oh, yeah.
So you knew the stuff before you joined the band with Veneta?
I was aware of it, yeah. I did get into kind of black music pretty early. I mean, through blues.
Yeah.
Through blues stuff, I was a big soul fan, and you know, funk and all the kind of black styles. Jazz was the one I had to wean myself onto.
Okay.
It didn't come to me naturally. And I knew it was important, and I knew I had to, at some point, jump in the deep end. And the ones that did it for me was Mike Stern. There was an album called Between the Lines, and it was rocky enough, and he had distortion on the guitar.
Yeah.
And so it was still kind of that thing, but it was, you know...
So he was your gateway drug into jazz?
He was my gateway into jazz. And then the other one, surprisingly, was the Oscar Peterson trio. I fucking swang hard, and I was like, yeah, this is cool. But a lot of the kind of stuff that was a bit more out.
So he was a piano player.
Yeah.
You obviously have piano playing skills.
To a degree, I'm not the best. I wouldn't consider myself a serious piano player, but
Well, you do all right. Is that where did that come from? Is that just from experimentation and obviously having enough knowledge from guitar to apply that to piano?
To a degree, yeah. It's amazing how close they are.
Yeah.
We really are. We steal shit from one another, guitar players.
Well, the other thing is about a piano, which, I mean, I'm a terrible piano player, but I get by, and it's that thing of, the great thing about a piano is the notes are all set out very mathematically.
Absolutely.
So it's like that little group of notes is the same as that group of notes.
Yeah.
And it's like all you have to do is get your head around that little group, and everything else is just multiplied.
That's right. And you just take it up the octave or down the octave. It's a piece of piss.
It is.
Which brings me to the point that, I don't know if it gets mentioned enough, what a trap this instrument is.
Yeah. It's like you can play...
I can play C in 5 different places, and it's the same note.
Yeah.
And, I mean, doing reading gigs is where it really fucks with you. Where there's a note and it's like...
it's like, where do you... Yeah,
it's G, and I'm like, I can play that G in 4 different places. So you kind of... It's something about... I don't think people that play other instruments understand what a head fuck it is on guitar.
And then transpose on the fly.
Yeah, and then there's the fact that the B string, it's tuned in 4ths, but then you get to the B and all of a sudden it's a major 3rd, and then it goes back to a 4th.
There's guys that play guitar that tune it in...
Yeah. I couldn't do that now.
Is that one of those things? Have you experimented much with alternate tunings like dadgad and stuff like that?
Open tunings.
Because I know that you play a bit of slide.
Yes, mostly for slide stuff. If I'm doing session work for people, and you want a certain sound, I'll tune mostly either open G or open D, or depending what key the song's in. But yes, and it's great for slide stuff, especially if you're kind of doing a certain thing. But it's a pain in the ass of playing chords. as you're probably aware, it's like, you know...
Well, it's that thing you have to relearn where, it's that thing, because you memorise shapes. And if you change the tuning, the shapes will change.
And for a moment, your head goes to, I hear a sound, and I'm like, oh, I want to play that chord. And then you realise, oh, fuck, I'm in a different tuning. And then it's the moment where you kind of go, oh, how
I guess if you tune to a chord, it's like... I guess that's the thing is like then you got to go to a minor, or if you're playing a dominant chord or a... Yeah,
if there's a funky chord in there too, if it's kind of not just 1/4, if that kind of goes to a 3, augmented or something, and you kind of go, oh, fuck, how am I going to play that in open D? Yeah.
You also play drums, and reasonably well. Is that just something that you, just from mucking around and spending some time on it and managed to come to terms with it, or...?
When we were on the farm, I twisted Mum and Dad's arm to buy me a drum kit. So I had one for a long time, but I just fucked around. And I never took it seriously. I just toyed around.
Yeah.
And then at some point in my 20s, would have been mid-20s, I guess, it occurred to me I should take it more seriously. It was hard to get jazz drummers around town. There was a handful of really good guys in southeast Queensland.
That's true.
That played great jazz drums. And then there was this drop-off point to, well, it is. Guys couldn't get anyone, and there's like, oh, I've got to settle for whoever. And I thought, fuck, I should, I can play a little bit of drums. I should just knuckle down and do a bit of practice.
Get some jazz chops.
Yeah, because some friends of mine, I was doing gigs for friends of mine, and they were always chasing drummers, and I went, yeah. So
I find it's like that with bass players now.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a good bass player. There's lots of bass players around, but it's hard to find a good one.
Yeah.
I see Max Dowers is back in town.
Yeah.
Have you been gigging with him?
I have. Every blue moon. I have actually. He picked up Jim's amp for me, that Rivera amp.
Ah, right.
And so I dropped by to...
Because we've done some things together where you played bass. You're a really good bass player.
Thank you, mate.
I love the way you play bass. That I guess it comes from guitar and all that you've learnt and the music that you're into, but you have a really wonderful sense of time. you do a lot of recording stuff. I would imagine that you're very aware of how all of the individual parts work together.
Yes, and that sets people apart, is looking at the big picture, is not just thinking about what's the guitar doing if you're a guitar player, but being aware of, I mean, the great examples of it are James Brown's band, the Wailers with Bob Marley, the Meters, and then it fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. The drummer plays a specific part that matches with the bass, and then there's like a counterpoint with what the keys and the guitar are doing. It's this bigger picture thing. But my sense of time, you know, I don't know if it comes to me naturally. I reckon it's something I've had to work on and I'm still not happy with, and I don't think I ever will be. I find myself having to, you know, go, don't push, lay back. And, you know, I still kind of watch videos of myself playing and kind of go, oh shit, you know, push that phrase or...
I find recording is the big thing. Like the more you record yourself, the more, because you can see it on the timeline. You can like,
you're talking about in this studio?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredibly exposing.
It is.
And I've got friends that are good.
It's a great learning tool.
Yeah. I've got friends that are good musicians that have toured the world and done all sorts of stuff, and they fucking hate going in the studio because it's like being naked, you know? It
reveals all the faults.
Exactly right. There's nowhere to hide.
No.
Nowhere to hide.
Even turning the distortion up doesn't help.
The reverb, yeah. That's right.
Yeah. But it is a funny thing, though, too, where, and I know this from working with different drummers, where different drummers feel time in different places. And you get
absolutely.
Some drummers who really sit on top of the beat and other drummers who like to sit right back on the beat. And different styles of music, like you've mentioned Bob Marley and the Wailers, and where, you know, with reggae, how the pulse is on the 3.
That band is unbelievable. The older I get and the more I listen to the Wailers, they are so good, man.
I guess the other thing too with that thing you're talking about, the jigsaw puzzle, is the bigger the band gets, the more people that you put in a band, the more important it is that you aren't stepping on someone else's toes, that your part fits into the big picture.
The bigger the band, the less you got to play to a degree.
That's why 3 pieces are great.
Yeah, play all the notes. Yeah, there is something about, man, I've got to say, the 3 people thing, there's something about like a piano trio in jazz, or about the rock, you know, Hendrix and the Experience, or all that sort of stuff, that there's some magic thing about 3 guys on stage, or girls, you know.
I guess there's an inevitable amount of space.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think works, particularly from a recording and producing point of view, is the things that make songs and music work really well is the space. It's the gaps in between. If you've got a singer who sings, you know, that holds the notes across, and it's that thing of like it pretty quickly gets really boring. But if you've got someone, it's like that guitar solo thing. It's like someone who goes, it pretty quickly gets boring. But if you leave space, and it's that thing of the more instruments you add, the harder it is to find space in the music.
Yeah. You know, you're talking about the bigger the band, the kind of less you got to play. It reminds me of mixing. You've done a bunch of it.
Yeah.
And the same thing. The more stuff you've got, you know, the more instruments and vocals and parts there are to fit in, everything has to squeeze into its place. You know, you have to thin things out or pan things here or there. You got to find.
I guess that is an interesting thing too, where, you know, it's that thing everybody wants to. It's like, oh, make my bass sound big and fat, and make my piano big and fat, make my guitar big and fat. It's like a lot of the times, the sounds that are small actually work really, really well because they create space for other things.
Absolutely.
Unless you're Phil Spector and you're going for the great wall of
sound. Yeah.
Just like throw more shit on them.
Quick, more players, quick.
There's a hole in there. Quick, fill that hole.
Yeah.
So, Robin Ford, I know that you've done a few videos online, even over the last couple of years, and possibly over COVID, I think.
It was COVID, yeah.
COVID. And you got really heavily into Robin Ford then and learned some note-for-note things of Robin Ford.
Yeah.
Was that just a thing that, for your own personal benefit?
Yeah. Yep, purely.
And what benefits did you get from that, do you think?
Well, it started because, well, I've always loved Robin and he's great. But it occurred to me at some point that the pentatonic scale, you know, just playing blues lick stuff, some guys can play blues licks and you kind of go, oh yeah, it's playing blues licks. And then other guys can play the same scale and it just seems to be these endless ideas and it sounds fresh. And Robin's one of those guys, man, that he can just play pentatonic all night and, you know, you won't be disappointed. It's great. And I thought, shit, you know, I had time on my hands and during COVID, you know, when we locked down and weren't doing gigs or anything. And, you know, yeah, so I just went through a bunch of transcriptions and just learned up a bunch of things. But the thing that surprised me about it was, I remember another guitar player saying to me, oh, it must have really helped your playing and stuff. I was like, no, I fucking forgot it straight away. It was like, it just kind of went out of my head. You know, I learned the solo and could play it all note for note, you know, at tempo, and
it creeps into the lexicon of the things that you use.
Subconsciously, it probably does.
Yeah,
the vocab. But yeah, I just find myself that once I did it and moved on to another solo of his, I was like, how's that other solo go? I can't remember now. But
how do you find? Like if we were to play Ain't Got Nothing But the Blues,
yeah,
Robin Ford, with all those changes, because I remember seeing a video of him explaining how he played over it. And he didn't explain how he played stuff note for note. He would just go, and he'd play through the chord progression.
Yeah.
And every time he played through the chord progression, it was different. It'd have a different chord substitution, a different...
Yeah.
But he'd also talked about, you know, when he changed to that chord, he would play, he was thinking a Lydian or a thing or a whole tone scale, or he would use a diminished scale. And it seemed almost that with every chord change, he would change the scale of how he was thinking about the chord.
Yep.
Is that something that you got into doing, or is it just more of a case of hearing the notes and work and then thinking?
All of the above. It's hard to describe, and people get frustrated because it sounds like you're being ambiguous or whatnot. But it depends on the gig and it depends on so much stuff. Some nights you're on a gig and you can hear everything in your head so clearly and it just spews out. And other times, you know, it's a mishmash of stuff. You might be thinking certain scale things at some points, but then you might just be thinking chord tones at another point, and then you're kind of implying another chord, you know, over a chord to get a certain sound. It's just, you know, over the years you get, vocabulary and
it does vary from night to night, I guess, like you were saying.
You'd know.
I guess you learn little tips and tricks, and you learn, like you say, on a really good night when everything's flowing freely, you're not thinking at all.
Yeah. Hey,
but then there are times when you're like, oh man, I wonder what's going on. Like you're really having to concentrate on and thinking about everything that you do. And I would imagine you would find this the same. I guess the better you get with the vocabulary, the less chance of train wrecks.
Yes, that's
but
right.
I still have train wrecks.
Everyone does. Everyone does. Hey, do you mind if I sidetrack for a moment?
Sure.
You just reminded me talking about hearing stuff, and sometimes it flows easily. I remember it must have been during COVID. I pulled out all these old videos that some of them I had never seen before, and it was doing gigs, you know, from years and years and years ago with various bands, and was watching my playing and was pretty horrified, really. And it kind of started me going back and doing a little bit of practice here and there. But one thing I noticed was when I started solos, I would be playing melodies and it sounded, you know, the solos sounded good. And as soon as I thought, I'm going to impress some people here and start playing some licks, it all just turned to shit, and it just sounded like complete shit. And what was it? It would have been March, I guess. I was down doing gigs at Blues Fest, and Tedeschi Trucks were there.
Oh, wow.
And it was the first time I'd seen Derek play live.
Oh, man.
So I've been listening to him since the late 90s and was a fan. Not like a super fan or anything, but it was like, yeah, he's great, but, you know.
His slide playing, wow.
He is unbelievable. And to watch him live, it fucking blew my mind. And a few things struck me. One was he only ever plays melodies. It's obvious when you watch him play live that everything that's coming out of his guitar he's hearing first. So at some points he can play a lot of notes, but it's obvious he's hearing that. He's not just kind of going, I'm trying to impress people.
Did you find that, is he improvising all the time?
Yes.
So it's not like there's no structured solos.
No, he's the same as all of us. He has certain vocab, but always from night to night it was, yeah, he just had at it, and it flowed through him.
And large vocabulary. When I say that, I guess one of the things that I fight against for myself is that not you playing through or recording in a studio and not going to the, you've got your typical, here's lick number 1, here's lick number 2, here's lick, and so you're fighting against that I guess it's mechanical memory. Of going, I know my fingers can do this, and if that chord there, I know my fingers can do this, and it's really easy for me to do, so I just go there without necessarily thinking about what musically that means. Yeah. Is that something that you work on, do you think? Or do you have the things, is there a fallback?
Sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's certain licks, cliche little guitar licks, but they're part of you hear them on all recordings.
Well, I was going to say, from a blues point of view, when you're playing pentatonic, there are a bunch of those licks that are in the blues lexicon, and as soon as you play that sort of thing, you go, well, it's not a diabetes thing, I'm sure. Let me make sure. All right. If it starts going, we're all in trouble. Yeah. Well, I am anyway. Yeah. For those people who don't know, I've got type 1 diabetes, and my phone tells me when my sugar levels aren't going well.
When you're in trouble.
But I'm okay. How do you find these days? I mean, I can see we've got on the floor here, you've got the, what's that called now? The
Quad Cortex.
The Quad Cortex.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I've been using a Kemper.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know that you've experimented quite a lot. I remember seeing you when you were younger, and there was a lot of people raving, oh, yeah, got to see Aaron with this. Because there's a big rave around town. And you've had this going on for a long time, where you've had a great reputation as a great player. It's true.
Thank you, mate.
No, it's true. But I remember seeing you when you were quite younger, and obviously you could see that your playing was wonderful. And I think this was playing with Oz horns, maybe.
Yeah, wow.
But I remember hearing it and going, the tone sort of sucked.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like, oh man, if the tone was good, everything would have been fucking mind-blowing.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that something, and I was always wondered one of those things too, where, like when you go and see a band, it might not be necessarily the guitar player's fault. The sound guy could be, the sound guy might be like, oh. But I know that, like, here I've heard you play over the years, and your tone is immaculate. Is that something that you concentrated on? Like, obviously getting into Robin Ford and Larry Carlton, particularly Robin Ford, the tone.
Oh yeah, he's unbelievable.
That's a big part of the attraction, I think, of the Robin Ford thing. Not only the choice of notes, but the tonality.
You know, one thing I learned from doing those videos where I was playing the Robin Ford solos note for note was I'd bring up a plug-in and try to cop the tone, because I was just plugging straight into the interface and filming it. And I was amazed at how mid-rangey Robin's tone is. Once you try to match it, it's all mid-range. Yep. There's no low end, no real high end. It's just all laser mid-range.
Do you think that's a good thing from sitting in a mix point of view?
Oh, yeah, he cuts through the mix, yeah. Yeah, but had you asked me before that, I probably wouldn't have, I would have said, no, he's got a great tone and it's balanced and blah, blah, blah. But once you try to match it and you're sitting there, it's like, it's all mid-range.
Yeah. I guess it's very different from the John Mayer big.
Well, he's got the scoop.
The big scoop.
Yeah.
So it's and which works.
Oh, it's great.
Because I wouldn't look at, because I always found that really interesting too, tonally, as a guitar player, the big scoop. Because when you talk about scooping out the mids, I tend to think of 90s metal and metal players.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, it's that, metal players, like they scoop out all the mids and have the big,
like the dual rectifiers.
So it's interesting, like, because I listen to Mayer's tone and it doesn't necessarily sound mid-scooped to me.
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, that there can be all sorts of, everyone sounds, there's be all these great sounds, but they can be vastly different.
Yeah. I always find it interesting too when you put on an album to listen to. And particularly, it's a lot easier these days with Spotify and playlists and stuff and even Apple Music and being able to put songs instantly and having, because I do this from a reference point of view in the studio, to have things to have as a reference to listen to when you're mixing, so you're going, okay. The actual difference in tonality from recording to recording. John Mayer recordings and the way the things are mixed have always, to me, sounded like there's a lot of low mid. Yeah. There's quite a bit of low mid.
I know what you mean.
The top end's can be quite muted.
Yeah.
But then you listen to Dire Straits stuff and it's very bright.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like particularly, you know, his guitar tone, like particularly the early stuff. If you like listen to Sultans of Swing and those first two albums, the sound of those albums are worlds apart.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've spent any time analysing and working out?
From a mix perspective?
Well, from a mix perspective, but from a point of view of getting a guitar sound. And because the guitar sound we're used to listening to, as you would know, it's not the sound of an amp in a room.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
It's the sound of an amp in a room that's been mic'd, gone through a preamp, gone through a console, been compressed.
I think that's one of the big issues with plugins, that people that hate plugins, I think they're so used to hearing the amp in the room, but a plugin is essentially, like you're saying, it's a snapshot of an amp in a room being mic'd up, then run through a pre, then coming through studio monitors. Yeah, that's right.
I do remember when I first got a Kemper, that was one of the things that I found really, it took me about 3 months of playing with it and playing with it and playing with it to get to a point where I was comfortable that I had the sounds right to put it in, to take it out and use it live. Yeah. You get used to hearing the sound of an amp and then you plug into something that's meant to sound good in a PA. It's not necessarily going to sound like you're playing through an amp on stage, because there is a certain sound about an amp on stage. Yeah. I guess that's that odd thing too, is if you're getting a great sound on stage with that sound of the amp, how do you get that to translate into a recording?
Well, it's $1 million question.
Like you were saying, you're seeing Derek Trucks live, and how do you get that to translate into a recording?
Yeah, well, he's an interesting one too, because he just goes direct.
Oh.
He doesn't even use pedals. He just plugs straight into his amps.
Okay.
It's crazy. Well, it's crazy to me how many different sounds he can get, and how much variation, and how much nuance and stuff. And he does stuff like he would hit there's a way of getting I don't know if I'll be able to do it here now. Like with slide, if you don't mute behind the slide, you can get this octave thing, like
a harmonic.
You hit a harmonic, and then oops, like that, and then you'd swell in.
Okay.
But he gets it right every time, first time. Like I can do it, and I'll do it if I'm recording it, I'll have to do 5 takes, and one might be usable, you know. But he just fucking gets it first time, every time.
How much time did you spend working on playing your slide stuff before you felt like it was comfortable?
Not enough. After I saw Trucks, I realised I was shithouse, and I'm still shithouse. My intonation's terrible. So I actually, it's mostly
I was a bit like that with Joe Walsh.
Oh, really?
I love Joe Walsh's slide.
Great.
Oh, man, his slide playing's a mine. But it's one of those things, I go back to trying to play slide every now and then. Yeah. And I suck at it. I suck.
It's because it's a whole other beast. It's so different to playing guitar. It's on a guitar and whatnot, but it's so different that you have to kind of put in the hours.
Do you play slide much at gigs?
More lately, I've been trying to do more of it. It's a sound I've always loved.
Oh man, I love the sound of slide guitar. I love it.
Some of my favourite players. Well, just start practicing, mate. And the other thing I will say about practice is, from goofing around with a bunch of instruments, is you have to get your hours up on stage.
Yeah, it does make a difference.
If you put yourself under that chops, and there's gig chops. Yeah, and if you you can practice 1 million hours, but if you're not doing it on stage, that's a whole other thing.
That's that big difference of the pressure of, it's like you don't get a second chance.
Yes.
It's there it is. It's like once that moment's gone, it's like that's it. You've got that one chance.
Yeah.
Concentrate.
Well, that's the thing about live, isn't
Yeah.
it? Playing live. And I guess shit changed with mobile phones, being able to record, because there was a time where we just did gigs and
you have a really bad one, you go, oh, forget about that.
Yeah, but people who just experienced it in real time, and they were like, you know, it was more a feeling than it was, where now the phone goes up and it's like, if you fuck it up, it's there forever. Someone puts it on YouTube and it's...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a good point. If you're live there in the moment, it's not being recorded, and you're in the room, there's a certain amount of vibe, and you're feeling it. It's that there's a vibe about being in front of someone playing live. There's an energy in the room that doesn't translate into a recording.
Oh yeah,
and it's like the pitching thing. It's like you can hear someone singing live, and they might be a tiny little bit off, but it doesn't matter in a live context if you're there in the energy of the room in the moment. But as soon as you record that and then take it away and listen to it, it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh God, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Because I've done that with myself. I've done being at a gig, you know, and you're playing and you're going, oh man, that felt so good. That was great. The room with the vibe, I felt really good. I felt like I was on fire tonight. I had a great gig. And you've recorded the gig. And you go away and you listen to the recording and you just go, oh God, really, it was like that? Was I, like, you can hear all of the things that weren't right. Because it's that thing of recording yourself is putting yourself under a microscope.
Absolutely.
How do you find that? Have you done a lot of where you've recorded your live gigs? And
ever since COVID, I started filming stuff. Before that, I didn't worry about it too much. But these days, I film a lot of gigs and I've learned a lot from it. And I noticed that sometimes the feeling on stage, you can get off and go, that gig was shit. And then you watch your footage back and you're like, oh, it was actually pretty good. Yeah. And it can be the opposite too.
It can.
But you're right, man. I reckon with video, you capture audio, you capture the visual, but they don't capture vibe. And I've done gigs and the audience was vibing and the band was vibing, and you get off and you watch it and you're like, it just sounds fucking flat and lifeless. So there is this other element that it can't be captured. Well,
maybe it can be captured. Maybe it's that thing of people who manage to be able to record things really, really well, and it's an odd one. That's always been one of the biggest laments from bands that were renowned as being a great live act. Yeah. But somehow didn't translate into a great recorded act. Yeah. And I just wonder why that is and how that was. Like AC/DC, obviously, that's one of the bands that energy and sound from their live shows, they managed to translate that into a recorded process. Particularly, I mean, obviously having great producers, having Mutt Lange do Back in Black. And obviously having some albums previous to that with Bon Scott that obviously, it's a long way to the top. And I'm just curious as to what your take on that is.
Yeah, I don't know, mate. I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah, I guess it depends on the band and the producers and whatnot. But I can only speak from my stuff. And these days, I'm doing everything from home, and so a lot of I'm playing all the parts myself, and I'm essentially the producer, so I'm not the best guy to ask. I try to distance myself from it so I can have some perspective, but...
You work with a few other people, though. You record other people's stuff. When you're doing that, are you recording yourself as part of their recording process? Is that, or are you actually doing recordings where you're recording a band and not being a player?
Very rarely. If someone asks me to do something, usually the budget's small to start with. So
they all are these days.
That's right. So I just do stuff myself. I can't afford to hire a drummer and a bass player and a keys player and whatnot. So I just do everything myself. And look, I know it's going to turn out a certain way because I like certain sounds. I'm selfish, and I love the sound of a Hammond organ. I love the sound of Wurlitzers and Fender Rhodes and certain guitar sounds and drum sounds. So I know it's going to err towards a, you know, actually I did some stuff for a friend recently, and he was kind of a little bit more 80s, like synth stuff, and it's so not my bag that I had to kind of, I can hear the sound in my head, but I don't know how to find it on a, you know, on a
keyboard. Yeah,
I'm like, I know what it sounds like, but how do I get where, if it's a Rhodes or a Hammond or anything? Just
go
like
for
that.
a D80 or a
DX7.
I
bought these soft tube plugins, and they're great at the 80s thing, but I have to just go through presets until I find what I want, because I don't know how to find it on a synth.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I guess, I mean, I think of 80s and you think of sawtooth synths.
That's right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the synthesized string sounds and
exactly.
Percussive
DX7.
things. DX7,
yeah.
So you obviously came from an era of playing through amps, and we've come in here and you've tried out, we've done this thing where we've been A-Bing amps and stuff like that.
Yep.
What convinced you to go down the path of getting a Quad Cortex?
I had the Kemper before that, and the Kemper was good, but the biggest thing with the Kemper was on-stage monitoring. I was running the Kemper through like a QSC K10 on stage, and they're so directional that you'd get to gigs, and depending on big stages it was cool because the drummer could say, give me a guitar and my wedge and whatnot, but on smaller gigs, you know, where I might be coming out front of house and through my K10, the drummer's going, man, I can't hear a note you're playing.
Yeah.
Where these things, old, you know, kind of combo amps with open backs, the sound
goes
dissipates
everywhere.
And everyone can hear you, which is why I went back to using amps. So I bought the Quad Cortex. I had a couple of Neural plugins. I thought they were pretty good.
Oh, okay. So you were already using the sounds, but in a computer sense?
For recording purposes, not for live. And so I was using the Kemper, and I decided I'd take a shot on this, mainly for form factor. It's smaller, because I had the toaster Kemper.
Ah, right.
With the floorboard thingy. Yeah. And it was a pain in the ass. It was, you know, to carrying around. Essentially, it was almost like having an amp, you know. So I went back to using an amp, and I just run this Quad Cortex like a pedal board.
Okay.
I don't really have massive presets. I just use it in stomp box mode. Got a couple of overdrives on there, you know, a tremolo, some reverbs and delays and stuff. And I can save it, and it's, you know, for whatever gig, you know, if I'm working with.
Give us a sample of some of the sounds that you're using.
Well, this is my generic one. So that's kind of clean. Got a couple of overdrives. What have I got here? I think I changed it for someone else's gig. I think it's a slight filter because I had to do this. I had a part I had to play, so I had to put. So that's kind of stayed there. It'll probably change.
It's almost got a wah-ishness.
Well, it's an auto, like a filter thing.
Wah. Yeah.
A tremolo I use all the time. Pretty standard. Slapback delay. Normal delay. Spring reverb, which I use all the time. And modulator reverb, which gets used a bit for ballad.
Wow.
That's pretty standard for me. And if I'm doing something with like, when I was on the road with Carice, she likes spring reverbs and certain stuff. So I'd set up sounds just for that tour.
You're in stomp box mode.
Yeah.
Stomp.
Yeah, that's right. You said it right the first time.
Stomp box mode.
Yeah.
Can you, like with each of those individual things, can you turn them, like multiple of those things on it?
Oh, shit, yeah.
So you're just going through individual ones, but you can turn like the distortion and the delay on and the...
Yeah, man. So there's 4 going there at the moment. Spring reverb and tremolo and slapback and bit of dirt.
The tremolo sounds great, doesn't it?
Man, I don't know if it sounds any better than the Kemper, but it's easier to use.
Yep.
It's got a touch screen.
Yep.
It's smaller, it's lighter. It just ticks all the boxes for me because I'm so lazy. It's light. So So
it works great in the mode, like you say. So you're running it like a stomp box through an amp, which is exactly what it is. So you're not. It's not its own standalone unit.
I don't get too in depth and crazy. It's got multiple
Like if you had to go
modes.
out and do a gig and you didn't have an amp, could you use
all the time? I do so much festival and.
Oh, so you got it set up so you can actually still use
a backline amp, and I just walk in with that.
So, but you're still using an amp.
Yeah. And I mean, I do gigs. Would you believe we live in a time where amps are banned?
Oh man,
I mean, you'd know this. You do gigs and they say drums are banned, but
well, amps too. There's gigs like remember. I mean, the Treasury used to be a case of no amps on stage. The Grand Hotel, no amps on stage.
Yeah,
it's
so every blue moon.
I mean, that's
I'll
part
get
of the reason why I
to,
bought a Kemper.
Yeah.
It's a compromise, but I think it's in some ways, a good compromise.
Yeah,
it's sort of funny how you get used to working a certain way and getting your sounds a certain way, and then that just becomes the way you just do things normally. I love the fact that there's no way, unless you were carrying, 3 or 4 different amps to a gig, you can't get, to get that. But the Kemper, I love that fact of like, okay, I can hit a button and I'm playing through a Dr. Z. I can hit a button and I'm playing through a Fender Deluxe. I can hit a button and I'm playing through a Marshall.
It's fun.
So you've got all of those things quick and easy at your foot, which is handy to have. Which,
by the way, I should say to you, one day I'm going to use 4 amps on a gig. I bought this radial, it's this device, I guess like a switchery thing, but I plug into it, I come out of the quad cortex into it, and I can run it 4 different outputs. And I've got a bunch of amps that are out of phase.
Ah.
So for a long time I couldn't use them together.
So it's got the phase switch.
Yeah, it's got phase switches on it. So there's a few venues I do that have got backline amps and stuff, and I thought one day I'm going to take a couple of amps and I'm just going to plug in 4 amps.
I just still want to go out and just take a pair of Bogners and be able to turn them up.
Yeah.
I miss it's been a long while since I've done a gig where you could actually even do that.
Well, I don't play that loud. I'll run multiple amps, but my stage volume isn't that loud.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. No, I don't think I could go back to playing, and I wouldn't want to. I think go back to playing as loud as I probably used to in the
80s.
80s.
Yeah.
A pair of quad box with a pair of 100-watt Marshalls.
Yeah. But in saying that, you would have been in those days. You would have been fighting against other loud people on stage. I mean, drummers would have been whacking, and the PA would have been loud as
with
shit.
Phil Emanuel, and that was.
Yeah, Phil's the fucking loudest guitar player in the world. Jesus.
Well, he was.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about the loudest in the world. He could play.
Well, in Australia, he certainly was.
He liked to play loud. I mean, apparently Billy Thorpe liked to play loud.
I saw Billy several times, and he wasn't as loud as Phil. Phil
I do remember standing on the stage at the Bridge Hotel in Balmain, Roselle, Balmain, and the drum was on a riser, and the kick drum was about at my kidneys.
Yeah.
And and the stage isn't that big.
Yeah.
And we had an Electric Factory, I think, sponsorship deal, and I think we were using Laney amps. I think at the time, Laney had just come out.
Yeah. Okay.
And we all had, it's like, and I think Chris Haig was playing bass.
Yeah.
And like he's got a. 4 quad boxes with the thing, and Phil's beside him. He's got 4 quad boxes and 2 heads, and he's got guitar coming out, coming out of the thing, and guitar coming out of the side fill. Chris Haig's on this side, and there's bass coming out of the side fill. Yeah. And I can remember standing on the stage, and like the drum kit's right there, and the drum kit had 2 of those those System 1400 boxes that are sitting behind us here. Yeah. A pair of those as drum fill.
Yeah.
Right behind the drummer, facing forward. Yeah. I couldn't hear the drums.
Wow. Jesus.
I could.
Yeah, man.
Like, let alone trying to hear my voice.
Yeah.
Over the top of that.
It was unbelievable. I got a picture of us at Tamworth Country Music Festival with Chris Stevenson, and I were sitting in the audience watching Phil, and Chris had taken the napkins at the table. It was so loud that he had to twist the ends of them and put him in his ears. So he's got whole napkins sticking out of his fucking ears. But it was like you had to, man. Otherwise, you just fucking go deaf.
Oh man.
Kirk L'Orange tells the story of Phil turning up to a venue to do a gig, and the owner of the venue comes up to Phil and says, "Phil, I've got to let you know, mate, we've got some sound problems here." And Phil says to him, "Don't worry, mate, you'll hear me."
I was doing a gig with Phil when that actually happened. It was like, yeah, we've got some sound problems, and Phil will be like, "Oh man, there'll be no problem. People will be able to hear."
Yeah, that's right. No problem. People will be able to hear me.
Oh dear, times are different now, and stages, I guess, have become quieter. I guess the leveling factor on most stages these days is the drum kit, and it's that thing. If you only really need to play loud enough to get the balanced sound out front, and that's I guess the most important thing, particularly from a front of house guy's point of view. If the sound coming off stage is balanced, then it's you don't want any one particular thing to be too loud. And I think a lot of cases, if anything's too soft, it's not a good thing either.
Yeah, I was just thinking, as you were saying that, my mind went to times have changed in that, I mean, when the Beatles were playing Shea Stadium and stuff, PAs were so shit that you had to kind of have amps and stuff that were louder.
Well, that's what the whole point with Jimi Hendrix was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They had the angle, Jim Marshall made the angle cabinet so that the people up in the balcony could hear his guitar.
Yeah, we live now in a time where PA systems are so good. You don't, your stage volume doesn't have to be that loud for the audience to hear.
I mean, I've been and seen a few bands that have no amps on stage. And the difficult part about that is if you're up front, up close, and the drummer's playing an acoustic kit, it doesn't really translate that well because the whole band's on in ears and there's no...
If you're sitting in the front row.
And the PA's out here and you're there and it's like the drum kit's like, well, where's the rest of the band?
Yeah, that's true.
I have to do a bunch of gigs where there's no amps, but generally speaking, when that happens, there's also an electric drum kit, which is no fun.
Yes.
Have you struck that thing where you've been doing a drumming gig and had to play an electric kit?
Never, I don't think. I know there's venues that do it. I just don't get the calls to do those venues that much. And I'm pretty staunch acoustic kit, and I'm probably the softest drummer in town. I can play really quiet. Yeah. But venues don't give a shit. It's just a blanket ban on all acoustic drums.
It's one of those things that comes down from a licensing point of view.
Yes.
They go, okay, well, in order for you to have live music, you must tick these boxes.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And I guess there are, drummers that don't comply and bands that don't find it easy to play quiet, and it only takes one band to come along and ruin it for everyone.
It's exactly right. Yeah, one loud band and the rest of us are ampless for the next.
Everybody else suffers.
Yeah.
So you spent some time playing with Oz horns.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
Not sure, mate.
That was quite
I was 18, I think, when I would have jumped on board with Oz horns. And they were working a lot back in those days. Yeah. It was like a full-time job.
Yeah.
Back in those days, they were doing a shitload of kind of fly-in, fly-out corporate stuff and local gigs and local corporate stuff. And several years. It was really good, mate. It was really good for me from good people. Mm-hmm. John and Mandy are great. Good players. There were some really good players went through that band.
Yeah. Were you in the band when Troy White was playing drums?
Yeah. Yeah, because he got done for DUI. I used to have to drive him to gigs. But he was young, man. He was young too when he started.
Oh, yeah. He was young when he started playing with me.
I got a feeling he might have been younger than me when he started. Because I was 18, so he would have been either 18 or 17 when he first started doing it.
So they really gave a lot of young players a
John
crack.
and Mandy were good for... Yeah, Chris Palmer came through.
Oh, wow. So
Oz horns. There were a lot of young crew.
Were you playing at the same time as Chris Palmer?
No, he left. He hung up the boots and I took his spot.
Ah, right.
But,
what prompted you to leave that situation?
I can't remember, to be honest. I must have just been doing other things. And, I'm still cool with John and Mandy, and I'll still do the odd gig here and there if there's something going on. I don't mind helping out. But
so I know that you've done quite a bit of recording, but you actually did a stint where you went over to the US and recorded at, what was the studio?
In the States?
Yeah. You hired the actual band that played on...
So the story is it'll probably take me freaking half an hour to tell the story. So I quit drinking. My 30th birthday was the last time I drank, and that would have been 2013. And I found myself with excess money, and actually getting shit done for a change. And at some point, I was doing some, working with good players and doing stuff. At that time, I was playing in Jim Kelly's band and Greg Lyons' band and a lot down northern New South Wales stuff.
Playing guitar?
I was playing guitar in Jim's band and Greg's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim had, so there was 2 guitars.
Was that the hip operation?
Yeah, Greg's Hip Operation and Jim's band was called Thrill Seekers. Jim Kelly's Thrill Seekers, it was called. Anyway, at one point, doing these gigs with these great players and stuff, I started to get the shits with Australian audiences, and I was kind of going, fuck, And I'd turned 30, and I'm thinking, fuck, if I'm ever going to jump and go to the States, it's only going to get harder and harder as I get older. Once I get in my 40s or 50s, it's going to be like, too hard basket. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, now's the time. So I saved my money for about 12 months, and I saved about 20 grand. I bought flights. I bought return flights because you have to if you're going to get into the United States.
Yeah.
And I stayed for 3 months, and my intention was I was going to test the waters and see if I wanted to go full time in the United States, because there was some visa, it was C6 visa or something it was called, that Australians could apply for once they're in the United States, as long as you had someone to sponsor to say they'd give you work. Yep. You could just go to the embassy and get this visa or whatnot. So that was my plan. I was like, if I want to stay on, I'm just going to get someone, a friend over there to fucking sponsor me.
Yeah, someone would say, hey, we really want you to come and play music and we'll sponsor you. Because
or some such thing, or whatever sort of job, I just tick that box.
Yeah.
But pretty early on, so I went to New Orleans, which was the city, if I was going to move to the States, that'd be the city I'd go to.
Why specifically New Orleans?
Because I'd backpacked through the United States in 2005, my old man and I.
So not like somewhere like Nashville wasn't appealing?
No, I'd spent time in Nashville. When Dad and I travelled through, New Orleans is like a second home for me. And
great music there?
It's my favourite bands. It's the most like Australia in a way. In that it's kind of really relaxed. It's kind of humid.
Did you
like here?
Did you? It's a bloody humid day today.
Sure is.
Sweating bullets. Did you go to Austin in Texas?
I've never been to Austin. I've been to Dallas. I've been to a bunch of
That's one of the places I've never been, but I'd love to go.
There's a scene there, man. Actually, Big D.
Well, Eric Johnson from there. There's ZZ Top from there. There's
Stevie, man.
A lot of my favourite American music. Is from Austin, Texas.
Yeah. Actually, there's a Brisbane guitar player living in Austin now. I've never been to Austin, but it's got a good rep. There's another guy called David Grissom, man. He's a great guitar player living in Austin.
Plays PRS guitars.
Yeah, he can really play. But New Orleans was the city for me. I'd traveled through the States, been to New York, been to Los Angeles, most of the major cities in the United States I've been to, and New Orleans is the one for me. Best drummers in the world, funky city, good food, laid back. I like the climate there better than the freezing cold. So I went and tested the waters there, and pretty early on went, I don't think I want to be based in the United States, mostly for lifestyle reasons.
Okay.
Yeah. Music's great, but, I mean, it's a dangerous place.
Okay.
It's not like Australia where we just walk around and...
So you've got to worry about guns and...
There was a church...
Gangs.
There's a whole bunch of gang shit. Actually, I had a few things that worked in my favour. One was I didn't drink, because people that are drunk get targeted. One was I had an old school flip phone when I was over there, and it was in my pocket. And I'd often walk past gangs and stuff, and they'd kind of look at it,
and they
weren't sure if you had a gun or not. So there was a few things that worked in my favour. But yeah, man, I kind of went, looking at it long term, I was like, I could live in Australia and do gigs there and whatnot, because what I wanted from the United States was access to good players and be able to record. And in the end, that's what I came, I made a bunch of connections over there, some really good friends, and I went, I can spend 9 months in Australia and then go to New Orleans or even like, 11 months and just go over for a month,
Record.
record an album and have a hang and catch up with people and then come back. So it was 2014 I went to the States. So yeah, I was lucky, man, that my favourite band over there is Cleary's band, The Monster Gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And Big D and I were spending a bit of time together. He was a great guitar player, fucking fantastic guitar player. And so I kind of got in his ear about it, and he made it all happen.
Oh, okay.
He kind of said to the boys, man, let's get this happen. And Cleary went to Los Angeles for a week. He was cutting an album for, it was either Bonnie Raitt or Taj Mahal, I can't remember. Because while I was over there, he did both of them, but I can't remember which one he did over that period. And so we jumped in a car and went to Florida. Dee had access to, there's a great keys player, singer called Donnie Sundell, who lives in, it was about a 3 or 4 hour drive from New Orleans. And we jumped in cars and headed out there and cut this album. Flash studio, man. Dee was telling me all this shit, and I'm going, is he fucking stirring me up? I go, you got a piano there? He's like, yeah, man. You got a Hammond organ there? Yeah, man. You got this? Yeah. I'm going, is he fucking lying to me or what? We get there, now it's all there. They got this big SSL desk, and Dee tells me it's from Saturday Night Live.
Oh, okay.
It was a desk that was there for years. So Eddie Murphy and all those guys, that was the desk they used to record the show. So yeah, we cut an album there of all my original stuff, and eventually I came back to Australia and released that. And
was it mixed over there as well?
no, Jim Kelly mixed it.
Okay.
In Lismore. He did a great job, man, because I don't really listen to that stuff that often these days, but I did this gig in Rockhampton with Kirk Larange, Greg Lyon, Brendan St. Ledger and I. And after the gig, we were having a hang in the hotel room, and Greg he was DJing. He was, got his phone out and he's playing all this stuff. Anyway, he says to Brendan, have you heard Aaron's stuff? And he's like, no. He started playing it. It was the first time I'd heard it in years, and was struck by how good the mixes were, man. I was like, holy shit, that actually fucking sounds good. Surprisingly.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Yeah, Jim did a great job on the mix. I don't know anything about, I'm a musician. I don't know anything about the other side of the industry of promotions and fucking marketing and stuff. So I released it. It went to #1 on the Aussie Blues and Roots charts.
Oh, wow.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean anything financially.
Not a lot does these days.
That's right. So yeah, I kind of, man, I don't know. I record albums because I enjoy the process. Mm-hmm. I like writing songs, and I like seeing them kind of grow and finish. And
I guess that leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
And so you wrote lyrics and sang on the album.
Yeah.
And you sing really quite well.
Oh, thank you, mate.
You've got a really. It's actually it's quite. When I first heard you sing, I was just like, that voice comes out of Westie. Why don't you sing very? Like you don't do a lot of gigs where you sing. What's going on?
If I have to, I do.
It's not one of the things that you enjoy doing, or.
Yeah, I get to work with really good singers a lot. I've been really lucky that I've worked with some really fucking good singers over the years.
Is that and so does that mean what you just?
No, I mean a lot of the gigs I do, I kind of get sick of the sound of my voice, and it's good to work with, some serious singers. But I don't mind singing, and it's super handy. It's super handy because I've done quite a few gigs over the years where people haven't shown up, certain singers. And I sometimes think, what the fuck would I do if I didn't sing? You'd be fucked. Mm. But yeah, so it saved my ass a bit over the years. I tell you, man, cutting that album with the Monster Gentlemen was interesting because I remember I wasn't that nervous about guitar playing.
But you were nervous about singing?
Yeah, and I'd worked with a lot of black artists over the years here in Australia, backing crew that come through, or certain people that have moved over or whatnot, and yeah, it's all good. But I'd gone to the States, and I'm kind of playing African American music with African Americans, and I'm this skinny Australian kid, white kid that grew up in the country, just approximating it, kind of hearing albums and just kind of
Well, basically, you were doing the music that you loved.
Yeah. But it was all on album CDs and stuff. It wasn't like it was around me and I was experiencing it.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. I remember kind of the first time stepping behind a mic with all the band there, and kind of going, fuck, are they just going to fucking lambast me here? And they were so nice, man. It was like, and it kind of was a weight off my shoulders. After that, it was like, oh, sweet, you know, fucking, I got the tick of approval and I can move on now.
I think most people are, particularly other musos, are very encouraging, particularly when you're doing original material, particularly in that instance. Have you ever had the experience of someone being incredibly negative? Have you ever experienced that?
I'll tell you a story, and I won't mention the name because it's, you know, a podcast or whatever, but I have told other musos this story in the past. So I think we were still living on the farm at the time. I would have been 11, maybe like 11 or 12 or something. And was just, you know, I'd been bitten by the bug. I was playing a shitload of guitar. And we went to watch this band in Tamworth. There was an American harmonica player was touring. And he was using a local pickup band. And there's a good musician in Tamworth who plays with all these touring acts and stuff. And he was playing guitar. And he was doing pinch harmonics. You know, pinch, So I'd heard them through Gary Moore.
Yep.
My old man had that Gary Moore live VHS.
Oh, the live in the Emerald Isles. Was it the one with...
It's the one in that little club in London where B.B. King's a guest and Albert Collins is a guest. You know that one?
Much later. No, that's much later. No, I was thinking I'm going back to his rock days when he was doing...
Oh, no. This
in
is...
the jumpsuit. And doing the...
No. This is the Les Paul through the Soldano era.
Oh, right. After Still Got the Blues.
Yeah. Yes.
Not the pre-Still Got the Blues Gary Moore.
No, this is after Still Got the Blues. So, yeah, man. So I'd heard these pinch harmonics and I was like, how the fuck is he getting the guitar to squeal? But, you know, I'm a kid in the country. I don't know. No one's there to show me.
Yeah.
And I hear this guitar player doing it on the gig. And I was like, oh, shit, that's that sound I've been hearing on Gary Moore records. So he gets off stage and I walk up and I'm like this little kid, you know, 11-year-old. And I walk up and, excuse me, sir, you know, I play guitar too. And, you know, how are you getting the guitar to squeal? You know, and he just fucking blew me off, man. It's just like, I don't know, fucking and I want to go get a beer. And he fucking just wanders off to the bar. And I was like, it's stuck in my mind ever since then that I was like...
He's having a bad day, maybe?
Maybe. I don't really know him that well these days. But, you know, friends of mine who work with him said he's cool. But I just remember thinking, what, you know, who would be a fucking prick to a little kid that wants to learn?
Yeah.
And ever since then, you know, I've always made a point of, if there's young guitar players come along to gigs, I'm like, man, jump up and have a play.
Yep.
Always try to be encouraging. But no, that's the only time I can think where anyone was kind of a bit fucking discouraging.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, that's not really discouraging. That's just basically, I guess, yeah, someone possibly having a bad day.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Possibly. Which happens to people every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's that thing. It's like the bad performance that's been captured. It's that one interaction and it's like...
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's right. That's your snapshot of that person for life now. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, it's that first impressions count.
Yeah.
They really do. Speaking of first impressions, what's on the horizon for you? What are you up to these days and what do you plan on doing in the future?
A lot of the same old stuff. I don't have any big, bold plans. I want to do way more recording on my own stuff. And I keep saying that, and then I just keep getting snowed under with all sorts of stuff. But I've got about 5 half-finished albums.
Okay.
Just sitting on the hard drive at home. Mostly original stuff. One of them's a Stevie Wonder album.
Okay.
There's 20-something songs already done. And
that sounds like more than an album, 20 songs.
I know, it got a bit out of hand. But there's a bunch of singers on it. So I'm singing a few things, but mostly singers around town.
Oh, okay.
There's some really good singers on it. So a lot of crew have already done their parts. But there's
people
still,
like Kevy and...
Yeah, well, Kevy hasn't done his parts yet, but he's... But he will. I trust him.
Did Kerry sing on that?
Kerry...
I think she talked about coming and singing on some stuff.
Yeah, she sang on some original stuff on mine. I've got a feeling she might be on a couple of the Stevie tracks, doing BVs. But she's cool. Kerry's great.
She's a great singer.
Yeah, cool chick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got to get some horns and a bunch of stuff done. But the problem with my little setup is I don't have air conditioning. It's like a bedroom studio. So there's...
like this.
And with global warming, my window for recording is getting smaller and recording vocals. So
autumn and spring are quite a good time.
So yeah, man, I'm thinking maybe even going around to Johnny Saxon's place. He's got a little studio set up under the house now, and just doing some in February or something, getting a few singers around and putting on a feed. And because I've got to get this shit done, man. It's been 10 years. This Stevie Wonder album, I started doing it 10 years ago, and within a couple of months banged out all my parts. And then I've got friends.
You don't want to go back and revisit any of the stuff you've done now?
Yeah, I will actually. I've got a better interface, better pre. So actually we're thinking, fuck, with better gear, I can go back and better plugins. I can re-record some of my parts and get them sounding better. But so that's where my head is at. I'm not thinking kind of gigs and stuff so much. Gigs pay the bills and they're fun. It's good to catch up with friends. But
are you finding that you're getting plenty of live work these days? I
think so, yeah.
Enough. I mean, is it one of those things that you want to do more, or you just is that a point where you go, okay, that's enough?
Yeah.
So you got to get a good balance of.
If I had to guess, I guess I would average 5 gigs a week.
Wow.
4 to 5 gigs a week.
That's good.
I'm in a kind of situation these days. I get to work with good players a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that thing too is, do you find, because you play drums and you play keys and you, so I guess there would be, are you getting a lot of calls to do other things besides guitar?
It changes from week to week. People ask, what's your main instrument or whatnot? Guitar's my main instrument. I've played it the longest and whatnot, but I mean, some weeks I won't play guitar at all. I'll either do a bunch of bass gigs or, some weeks I do mostly drum gigs.
How do you find, how often do you practice? How much time do you spend on the guitar just to keep your facility of your playing ability at its peak?
It changes. Pre-COVID, I didn't practice at all. I'd have my hands on the instrument a lot. I was gigging often 3 times a day.
Wow.
But not every day. But often I'd do 3 gigs in a day. And that takes a toll on the body too. I've noticed, you start to get, by the time you fucking lug your gear around and then you do it and then you do a 3-hour gig and then you fucking put it back in the car and you get it out again.
Wait till
I don't want to hear about it, Scotty. It's already fucking bad enough.
No, I've been lugging large PAs and gear around for years. I'm luckily, touch wood, I haven't done
any serious
damage to my back, or
that's right.
I've had a really interesting thing with bursitis in both my shoulders.
Yuck.
Which hasn't been fun, but it hasn't stopped me from being able to play.
Yeah.
It just means that I can't put any weight on my hands above my head. So if I'm, which is it's gradually dissipating, and it's not as bad as it was when it first happened. I couldn't lift my arm like that. Jesus. It'd be like in severe pain. And I'm okay now. I can do that. So it's getting better. It's not gone, but it's better.
Yeah.
And I don't know what causes that and where it comes from.
Yeah.
But whether it's just a getting older thing.
Yeah. Yeah, these days I pick up the guitar. Sometimes if I want to watch the news of a night, I'll pick it up for half an hour. And like I said, mostly I was goofing around with slide for a while there. Just trying to keep that going. Drums, I haven't practiced drums for 10 years.
I was going to say, you work with Kirk Lorange a bit. Do you pick up much tips from Kirk about, because he's a monster slide player?
We've talked shop a little bit. We did this gig up Cairns Way.
I'm surprised you haven't got one of his slides.
I've got two at home he gave me. And they're cool, man. They're a different sound, but they're heavier.
They're quite a heavy brass one.
Yeah, they're heavy, man.
Yeah.
This thing I like because it's light and I can just whip it around like the glass slides. Yeah,
is that based on the penicillin bottle thing?
Yeah, the Coricidin or Coricidian or whatever they call them.
Oh, man.
I've got skinny fingers, so
my fingers are so fat. I can't get that past my first knuckle.
Jesus.
I get that. Oh, that's...
Wow.
Oh, man.
There you go.
Fat fingers.
Well, that's medium,
that's part of
That's medium. You must need large, mate.
That's part of my problem of digging. It's like they're a bit...
Yeah. So drums, I haven't practiced in 10 years, but I've got a practice pad at home, and if it's for a normal drum gig, I don't practice at all. I just turn up, take cymbals and snare and have at it.
Is it that thing when you do practice, it's more rudimentary stuff?
Yeah, I'll just sit at the same thing. I'll watch the news for half an hour. I'll sit and just do
where did you learn the rudimentary chops for playing drums?
Well, same as everything. I've been really lucky to work with good players.
And they give you tips.
And yeah, there's one guy, a drummer in Brisbane called Paul Hudson.
Oh, Hutto.
And
He played on my first album.
Fantastic.
What a great... I remember he'd be off doing his jazz gig thing and or you know, whatever. And he'd rocking in the panel band with playing AC/DC.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, but you're
man.
playing a jazz gig, but you're...
Yeah. It's one of his favourite bands, AC/DC.
Oh, man. He's a great drummer.
He's fantastic.
Great drummer.
He's got incredible hand technique. He's one of the best
I remember
around.
coming a few years ago asking me to come and do a gig, and he was just like, no, I'm not going to go and play where I got to bash the drums. I'm not interested in playing your rock stuff anymore.
Oh, dear. Yeah, so we did a gig with Wayne Newey years ago, and I just said to Hutto, we took a practice pad, and I said, just show me hand technique. And he did it in like 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes. He just showed me the basics.
Molar technique? Was that
Yeah, all that stuff. Do this. Once you get the hang of that, bring it over. Get, that's the feeling of 2 strokes. That's going to be 3s. Your handle finish here, and then you're just using the whip action and whatnot. And in like 10 minutes, that's the shit I still use to this day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's, if I pick up a practice pad, I just, technique, if it's an important gig, I'll pick up a practice pad and just fuck around for a little bit. But bass, I never practice. And if anything, I feel like it's the one instrument that I still feel like I've got too much technique on the instrument. You know what I mean? Like, as a bass player, you want to be playing. The older I get, the less I want to play. And I'm thinking,
Remember, we did a bunch of gigs with Danny Fi-Fi and Robbie Bull playing drums, and we were doing 60s type music, doing a rock and roll dancing thing, and we did a gig at 20s. We did I don't know how, for a month or so. Well, we did maybe it was once a month was it once a week or once a month? I can't remember now.
I can't remember.
We did it for a little while.
Yep.
And it was fun. We did some recording in here.
Oh, that was during COVID.
During COVID.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll put some into the But
making me nervous.
No,
I can't remember.
The thing that really blew me away.
Wearing a weird shirt is about all I can remember.
And the hat.
I can't remember that. I remember Rob had some weird shirt.
Robbie Bull.
I'll wear that.
What blew me away, and this is that thing where I was saying about the timing thing, is well, I don't think we took it very seriously.
Sure.
But it was fun. And I enjoyed doing it. And we had the harmony thing going on. It was great because we did Everly Brothers stuff. And
that's right, yeah.
And you could see where you'd put the bass notes, and it was the accuracy blew me away.
Really?
Your accuracy of putting the actual bass note just like that millisecond behind the kick drum. And
wow.
And I was just wondering, is that something that you're obviously not thinking about it, it's just something that that's where you feel the time? And
I have the opposite experience. When I record bass parts at home, I'm like, you record it and you think, oh, okay, and then you kind of look at it
and you're
on the graph and you're like, fucking hell, the time is shit.
Maybe it's a case of that's the combination. Yeah, how like you took, that's that thing of a combination between a different drummer and a different bass player. The combination of where Robbie Bull was putting the kick and the way you were.
Could be.
It was just, anyway, so that worked out really. It was one of the things that I noticed on the recording. It had a certain feel and vibe about it that was really quite nice.
Yeah, cool.
Guitars.
Yep.
Now, you've been quite experimental.
Really?
Well, you like to modify them.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And you've got quite a few, and you've got different scratch plates and pickup configurations. You're quite renowned for your chopping and changing of pickup configurations and
I guess
chopping
so.
and changing of body parts.
Yeah, if that's fair call. If I get a new guitar, I kind of have something in mind. So I'm not interested in buying something off the rack because then I'd have to spend money to change it anyway. So if I pay $3,000 for an off-the-shelf Fender, then I'm going to change it up anyway. So I tend to just buy. This one this guitar it's the same age as me. It's an 83 Strat.
Okay. Yep.
I bought it secondhand from a fella in Brisbane. It's obviously had a Floyd Rose on it at some point. It's got the block in there. And
okay.
It's been drilled out here.
Yep.
And there's a sticker on the back.
It's one of those, because if you just flip it over, see if it's got this, maybe it had the Kayla in it.
Maybe. I just saw the holes up here and went, oh, it must have been a Floyd Rose. But it's got a Zenith Music, Claremont, Perth, Fremantle. Still got the sticker on it.
Oh.
From the shop it was bought at in the 80s. But so it was an actual guitar, and I put the fake P90s in it.
Because in the 80s they made some reissue type guitars, because it's only got the 21 frets. Because nearly all of the 80s Strats that I ever owned, and I bought a few,
had 22.
Had 22.
Yeah, okay.
Except for they did have some like a reissue vibe.
Yeah.
Some of those like a reissue vibe guitar, which because all the 60s guitars and 70s had 21 frets.
Yeah, I've got a 90s, early 90s Strat, and it's got 22. But like you're saying, most of my guitars are I buy a neck from somewhere, from eBay or something, and then buy a body from somewhere, and just tack it together and put the pickups I want in. And it can be hit or miss. I've got a Telly at the moment that I thought would be great, but it's the bridge pickup's too bright and the humbucker in the neck is too dark, and it just does not. So I'm going to have to change pickups eventually.
Just swap them over.
Put the bridge Telly pickup in the front, you reckon?
Yeah.
That could work.
Well, it's an interesting experiment at the very least.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. But you're right, man. I mostly have, I think I own too many guitars, but I wouldn't have anywhere near as many as you've got.
One of the things that got me on the path of buying guitars was I'd wear through the frets.
Yeah, you were telling me.
The guitar, and at one point it was actually cheaper to buy a new Fender Strat than get a refretted.
Jesus.
But then someone put me on the path of buying a Sir guitar with stainless steel frets and going, oh, you'll never wear them out. They'll be. I still managed to. Have you tried stainless steel frets? Is that something you've experimented with?
Only once, ages ago. I bought a Warmoth neck for, I can't remember if it was a Strat or a Telly. I got a feeling it was a Telly. And it had stainless frets.
Did you like it?
Nah. No, I can't remember liking it. I think I liked it less than just normal nickel frets, whatever they are. Yeah. But I'm so utilitarian. I mostly play Fender-style guitars, Strats and Tellys. And to be honest, it's mostly because they're indestructible.
You can,
I'm working so much. It's
Gibsons, man, I don't know how many Gibsons I've had that.
They make me nervous. Well, the angled headstock.
They break.
Yeah.
You've got to be really delicate with them. I mean,
Absolutely.
I have a SG that broke at the neck maybe 6 months or more ago, and then a month or so ago, I pulled it out of the case and it had separated it.
Jesus.
So I haven't managed to take that to get fixed.
Wow.
But and I love the guitar. Once they've had the neck break, and if you get them repaired really, really well, they're
stronger than before.
They're stronger than before, and they're not worth as much money if they've had a neck break. But they're generally, if they've been repaired well, a better guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you use anybody to actually work on your guitars, or is it something that you've spent the time and learnt how to do yourself?
No, Mick Gentry.
Yep.
I just take stuff to
Mick. Mick did the neck repair on the SG, so he's done a couple of neck repairs on broken headstocks for me.
Yeah, Mick's been really good to me over the years, and I'll continue to use. He's great. If there's any issues, like he'll give me stuff back, and I'll take it home and kind of go, oh, action needs whatever, or blah, blah, blah. I just take it back to him. He just says, just bring it back, and
Have you had many refret jobs?
Yeah, he's done a bunch of refrets for me.
Is that from guitars that you've bought that needed it, or for you've worn them out?
Both.
Okay.
Both, yeah. Yeah.
Do you find that you're playing, it's like I noticed when you're playing there, you seem to have quite a delicate touch. You don't really.
I'm not heavy-handed as much. In fact, in later years, I've actually tried being try to become slightly more heavy-handed because it's a sound I love.
Yeah.
I've got friends that give it a whack and I'm like a bit
in,
jealous. I'm like,
dig in for the blues thing.
yeah, man, it makes a difference. But no, naturally have a lighter touch. But so yeah, I wouldn't wear through frets like you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to have a lighter touch.
We're going in opposite directions.
No, I just know it's one of those things that if you want speed and fluidity, a lighter touch is actually quite helpful in that department. And the more you dig in and tense up, the less fluid, and it tends to inhibit your ability to play quickly if you need to.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've worked on? Because you've got some chops, you can actually, if you need to, play some widdly wee bits.
Speed?
Is that something that you worked on, or has it just come naturally from spending the time?
When I was a kid, I messed around with stuff, but not in a long time. It's what feels, I don't know, it's hard to describe what I'm going for now, but there's kind of a connection.
Because you don't, the other thing that I've noticed too, with all those sounds that we went through,
yeah,
you don't have a lot of gain.
Well, no, it's
quite
very rare.
It's quite a clean tone.
It's very rare I use heavy distortion these days. Certain gigs, I'll set it up with something that's...
What about if you were going for the Robin Ford tone? What do you go for?
I haven't... Yeah, you can't really... In fact, I'm trying to work out a way that I could turn on a drive and an EQ on here at the same time, so I could get that mid-rangey thing with the one stomp instead of having to do two. But there probably is a way to do it.
Just get a little Tumnus Klon pedal. That'll give you the mid boost. That'll give you all that mid that you want.
Yeah, Tube Screamers are mid-rangey.
Well, that's true.
But
that's true.
No, there's like a Zen Drive thing in here.
That's it. Oh, because the Zen Drive is that's what he uses, isn't it?
Yeah. I had two Zen Drives actually for a while. There's one with a tube and there's one, this just must be fed or whatever. And they were great.
You don't have them anymore?
No, they were great, but I don't know why I got rid of them. Maybe when I got the Kemper or something, I wasn't using them. But yeah.
So you talked about having guitars. I know that also you have quite a fetish for amps. Have you managed to hang on to those, or do you tend to sell them, move them on?
Bit of both. There's amps I regret selling, but
we did a recording in here. You had the band with the horn section, and was a live thing that we did in here.
Yeah, that's right.
And you were playing a Fender Deluxe.
Yeah,
that amp sounded great. Have you still got it?
No. It was a great amp, man. It was my main amp for a long time.
It was very loud. I was blown away by how loud that amp was.
When I first got it, it had... So at the time I bought it, the Aussie dollar was really good. And it was like $1.10 or something to the US, $1.15 or something maybe. Yeah. It was considerably more than the US dollar. So I was buying all this gear out of the States.
Yep.
I bought it out of Chicago, and it was a 70s... like an early 70s...
Yeah, the silver one.
Silver face deluxe reverb. It sounded
great, that amp.
When I got it, it had no headroom. It was fucking... It had the original speaker in it. One of those old... it was an Oxford or something, and it just farted out. You couldn't get past 3 on the volume control without just farting out.
Yep.
And I replaced it with an Eminence Cannabis Rex or something it was, speaker. Yep. So that added a shitload of headroom and stuff to it. So it was louder than a normal deluxe reverb probably.
Ah, right.
But it was a great amp. But you know what gave me the shits about it was that I had to use a step-down transformer all the time.
Ah, because it was a
So when you're carrying a guitar and a pedal board and an amp, plus you got the big fucking heavy step-down transformer, it was like it was almost like another trip to the car, to the gig. So I was like, fucking, after a while, I loved that amp, but I must have bought something else and just went, it doesn't have a step-down transformer, so I'll get rid of the fucking deluxe. But
fair enough.
Yeah, I do miss it. It was a great amp.
Yeah.
I had a Vibrolux reverb too that was too heavy, man.
Oh, wow.
I replaced the speakers in it.
They've got 210s.
210s, but I replaced them with big, efficient speakers, so it was loud as shit. But because it had big speakers in it, it was fucking
Because you
heavy.
you like the volume for the headroom.
Yes.
Because I remember we did a whole amp shootout in here, and you were basically looking for the amp that you could get loudest clean.
Yes. Yeah, I'm upside down with a lot of guitar players. A lot of guitar players like to have it set so they can get hair on it instantly. But I like to do the hair from the ground. So
you just want basically a good pedal platform.
Yeah, for rhythm stuff, I need a bit. I need to be able to do that at volume with a band, you know, and then I can set hair from there. That's the way I approach it.
You've just acquired a Riviera head.
Riviera, yep.
They're renowned for being quite loud. What sort of is it a 100 watter?
35 in theory.
Oh, 35. Okay, so not a.
But
not
it was
a big,
loud, man. I used it the other night for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I reckon the input.
But it's a head though. So what sort of a cabinet are you putting it in?
I've only used it once, and it was through a 212.
Open
cab.
back or closed?
Open, semi-open.
Okay. Do you prefer an open back cab?
Yeah.
Is that because, like you were talking about earlier on, when you're on a stage, you want the sound to?
Yeah, and I'm more a Fender guy than a Marshall guy, so I've always preferred open back amps. There's a certain low mid thing that comes with a closed back cab that I kind of prefer the open.
Mm. We've covered a lot of territory. And I think at this point I might just say thank you very, very much for spending some time down here today. I think it's getting a bit muggy and warm, and it's time of go and have
sweaty, but
go and have a cup of coffee and a bite to eat.
Sounds good.
Right, thank you very much, Aaron.
Thanks, Scotty.
Phil, man. And thank you very much for watching the podcast, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.